It is another Saturday morning in sunny Northern California. In the last episode of A Day at the Forge, I was working on a fairly complex pattern-welded Viking-age sword. As with many of my projects, they take a long time to complete, and this one is no different. My goal for the day is to forge the bevels into the sword and create a rough taper from the base to the tip. As I am done with all forge welding, I am preparing pieces of wood to light the coal forge. The coal forge is in many ways much nicer than my forced air propane forge. The coal provides me with isolated heat and greater temperature control. It is also less noisy and as a result feels more relaxed. The large pieces of coal make lighting the fire on the first try a little bit challenging though. To create enough heat, I first need to get the wood burning really well. Otherwise, the coal will not burn by itself. In the previous episode, I was talking about rituals. In many ways, lighting the forge is one of them. It requires cleaning the clinker out of the forge, preparing the paper and wood, and then carefully controlling the fire and air till everything is ready. By that time, my mind will also have transitioned over to a day at the forge. The pattern-welded sword, containing a core of 8 pattern-welded rods, is currently roughly in the shape of a sword, but still requires beveling for the cutting edge. At the moment, the blade is roughly 36 inches long, that's 92 centimeters, which is at the extreme end of Viking-age swords. The complication of that length is that it does not quite fit in the bed of the forge. As I'm forging the bevels, I need to be careful to forge both sides the same amount. Hammering at an angle on one side widens the cutting edge, which causes that section of the sword to bend slightly. Switching over to the other side helps with correcting that bend. While working with the coal forge is peaceful, the length of the sword was really getting in the way of a solid heat. The propane forge allows me to heat much longer sections and in the end will speed up the work. My process for forging in the edges requires heating overlapping sections of the sword, working from the base to the tip and then back again. At this point, the pattern-welded core is not really visible, and I need to make sure that I work both sides evenly so that it stays in the middle and does not get too distorted. I am aiming for a straight and even edge. Small hammer blows iteratively correct and accomplish that. If you have watched my previous videos, you may have been left with the impression that the power hammer does all the work. For the Day at the Forge videos, I'm showing you almost everything I do with minimal cuts of the video. I hope you get the sense of the manual work required when working on a sword, or for that matter, anything else. The heat was getting too close to my hands, which means it's probably a good idea to switch sides, assuming that the tang has cooled down enough. To get the right taper, I'm drawing out less of the edge towards the tip and leave the material thicker there. Once the whole sword has been beveled once, I'm working backwards, but this time at slightly lower temperatures and a wetted anvil. The water gets trapped between the anvil and the hot steel, causing it to vaporize and blowing off scale. This reduces the amount of scale I will have to grind away later. Of course, with all of this, I better make sure that my hammers don't catch flame and burn away. Once I'm done with forging, I need to figure out the geometry I want to grind. To get a better sense, I remove some of the scale on the grinder. When making a sword, the time spent grinding is quite disproportionate to the forging process. I estimate that between forging and grinding, I probably spend 20% of it forging and the rest in front of the grinder. Grinding also generates a lot of metal dust that is not all that healthy to breathe in. Ideally, I would be wearing my respirator, but at the moment I'm making do with a strong fan that blows the grinder dust away from me. My only objective at the moment is to get to a place where I can take a test edge of the sword. That will tell me where the line between the cutting edge and my pattern welded core runs. To remove some of the scale from the fuller, I'm switching over to my grinding wheel. Free-handed fuller grinding is not something I'm very good at. Because of that, you will see me grind very carefully here. Alright, that's enough forging and grinding for a day. Now it's time to dip the sword into my vat of ferric chloride and see what kind of patterns I can discern. As always, this is difficult to see on video, but you might be making out some patterns. The important part is really where the lines run and that the other side of the sword looks completely different. Alright, my day at the forge is coming to an end. I hope you enjoyed this video and will subscribe to my channel. I plan on posting these kind of updates more frequently while I'm working on getting projects finished and documented. If you like these videos, please share them with your friends and on your social networks. And with that, I will see you next time.